Afternoon. Chris the Contemplative here, and we're here to discuss what you see in the title. This is my show, and we usually cover topics like this, so welcome aboard if you're new here. I am Chris the Contemplative. I am a uh, principal of a private conservative school, and it's a family business. So I have a lot of experience in the educational field, and I'm here to discuss something that's very important, something that we're going to have to change our perspectives on if we want to stop making the same mistakes we've been making for decades. It's a big elephant in the room. It involves some serious brainstorming, humility, and honesty. And it's time to pull the cat out of the bag and look at it. If you've already fallen into these issues, don't worry. We've all been there. Many people have fallen to brainwashing and appeal to authority fallacy and all kinds of things. It's part of growing up. It's part of maturing. And if you're in a bad culture that doesn't teach you any wisdom, you're going to fall for things. You're going to realize that you're kind of stunted in the way you use your mind to critically evaluate things. Even the educational system can stunt your growth. And I'm an educator, so I would know. Even Socrates, I was reading up on what Plato was saying about Socrates, and apparently Socrates discussed the educational system of the Greeks, and he had the same issue. He said that they're too much into teaching information from the authorities and not teaching people how to think. There's a saying, it's better for someone to learn how to fish than to just give them fish. The same can apply with information, with wisdom, with common sense. And we're seeing something very interesting. Have you noticed how, if you turn on the television, let's say you go to any sort of channel where they allow for debates between the left and the right, or if you go onto any podcast where they allow it, the left is very insecure. I mean, even if you're a leftist, you have to admit they're not acting very stable. They try to talk over the person really quickly, and that's nonsense. That's a lie. Why are you making that up? And they're acting kind of nutty about it. And the person on the right is just sitting there trying to make a point. And if the leftist does say something that is their own opinion, and they don't just try to shut down the other side and crazy make and act like a child, they usually have some strange, unfounded thing. They'll have their own unfounded, well, this is my opinion, this is the truth. They won't say where they got that from. They won't say any sort of data to back it up. If they do have data, it's some very skewed statistic. You're not really sure how many people are being pulled in that study, which is very important. You guys should learn statistics if you're getting interested in this. It's not that hard. I learned it. It doesn't take that much time. If you want to get serious about the culture war, you got to learn your statistics, and you have to know about the fact that statistics can be manipulated. There's plenty of good work on that. Dr. Peter Kreeft said in a video I linked in the description, in academia, there's lies, damned lies, and statistics. There are three different kinds of lies, right? So if you go through college and you pay attention, you'll know that the buck doesn't just stop with someone saying, "Oh well, I have a study on this." There's so many issues with that argument. There are good studies, but I mean, something politically neutral for you to understand, there's a plethora of studies through the United States government, the FDA, and other organizations, which were paid for by cereal companies and soda companies and other nefarious corporations, paid off scientists to skew data in order to make people think that something that's unhealthy isn't healthy. A more accurate and relevant example is the video I always refer to, John Stossel's fake academic journal video. Check it out in the description when you can, where he details that there is a university that was just accepting fake parody studies that use token a particular leftist vocabulary like climate change and gender fluidity. Anything with those things in the title were accepted without any peer review. It was totally embarrassing. And of course, they kind of took it back, but the damage is already done. So, this is what I'm going to be talking about. The clowns' masks are coming off, and it's time to really start listening to people who say, think for yourself. Think for yourself. These people do not have all powerful knowledge. They are not gods on earth. They are people just like us. Some of them are more educated, but just being more educated doesn't necessarily mean they deserve respect and our time. In fact, this has always been the case in the tenets of where we get all of our academia from. Again, I go back to the classic Greco-Roman tradition. Socrates and Plato. Socrates had to fight his way through some nonsense, right? The person that we look up to for starting the whole rationalist, idealist movement behind, this is right, this is wrong. He had to deal with critics and what you would call Dr. Turley would call babbling. People would just come out of nowhere. Either they were trolls or they were people that were playing devil's advocate to see if this guy could beat them at argumentation, or they were crazy people who didn't like what he was saying. And he had to debate fair and square with them. He had to show that he knew the truth. He couldn't just say, well, I'm Professor Socrates, and you have to listen to me because I'm science. I am science. Now, I may change my mind a month from now on why masks don't work. Oh, excuse me, I'm going into a different topic. But you get the picture. He didn't do that. He clearly had to have some humility. And they created different logical fallacies. If you really want to be ahead of the curve and not fall for scams and corrupt experts, you have to know your logical fallacies. And one of these logical fallacies, which is still used today, unfortunately, the debate teams and the coaches are getting woke, so that's going to be out of the picture soon. But I also have taught debate. I am a debate coach for a school, so I know about this. And it's called appeal to authority fallacy. And any academic person worth their salt, whether they're in the hard sciences like chemistry or what have you, it's the hard sciences are still somewhat intact, or even if you're in the humanities or the social sciences, anyone that's really serious should know what this is, which means you can't just run around with your badge, with your little professor badge, and become Jesus Christ incarnate or the next Socrates without earning it, okay? You can't just say, well, I'm an authority, therefore I'm right, because anyone could do that. And one particular case is this guy right here, okay? This guy right here. His name is Michael Isaacson. He appeared several years ago as part of another phase of race rioting and race baiting that the left was doing. And he was an Antifa affiliated professor. So he's affiliated with an FBI acknowledged terrorist group. How do you like that? And if you know your stuff, there's been communist professors. The academic world has been a root of much evil. Professors can become revolutionaries. They can inspire things. They're not like benevolent gods all the time. And this guy was a fruitcake. He was exposed by Tucker Carlson, who does not have apparently the same level of education as this guy, but Tucker Carlson made him look ridiculous. But he's a professor. He's a professor though, right? Oh, we have to bow to the PhD. Oh, please, Mr. Professor, I've been looking for the light and I finally found it. You must tell me how to think, please. Isn't it kind of pathetic? How pathetic have we become where we have been wired to think like this? But yet, Tucker Carlson exposed him, and because his theories, I mean, he might be a smart guy, but he's deluded. Okay, he's deluded, or he's just kind of corrupted by the utopian communist agenda and all the woke stuff, and his stuff doesn't make sense. Okay, and this is something that's very important. You can have someone who's smart, but they can still be deluded. They can still be wrong. They can still be wrong. Isn't that crazy? Again, I really don't know what's going on in the colleges. There seems to be a lot of people who have graduated. They must have forgotten everything. They have their beautiful picket fence in home. They start watching the TV and they start worshiping professors. But they forget, if you remember, there's a whole point to the peer review process. There's this whole thing going on where you can't just be a professor and then become like this god on earth. And so this guy, I remember he was talking about how police are bad, defund the police, right? And I don't care how smart he is. I don't care. That is a stupid idea. Okay? You took too much acid, bro, or maybe you have a girlfriend who believes that or something. I don't know. You're compromised. You're dumb. You shouldn't have been given tenure. Someone should have stopped you. Someone should have challenged you. Um, you're being ridiculous. And of course, I would respect defund the police more if these people who said that believed in militias and the Second Amendment and something to maybe replace it. I'm all for smaller government. I believe in monarchism as ideally. I really do, which is like as small as the bare necessities should be the government. That's what it should be. It should not be this big corporate conglomerate mixed with like different international corrupt networks and banking and all of that. And I'm okay with that. It's really disappointing how stupid the left is and insecure they are. And it's like, why can't you guys think out of a paper bag? All of these professors are losing the sway over the people they're supposed to educate. I know that there's a minority fake left, but no one is really taking these people seriously unless you're a really diehard Democrat or liberal. People aren't listening to guys like this. They're losing. They're losing the battle. Okay. Um, Another thing that he believes in outside of defund the police was he believes in this idea that everything is about class warfare. I mean, he's a Marxist, so he's going to believe in that. It all has to do with that. And, there's these evil, white, racist, Republican capitalists, and it's police are in on it, yada, yada. And another issue the left falls into is that they have no counter proposals. What is a counter proposal? It's another debate technique. You got to know what these words are. Okay, a counter proposal is that if you're going to abolish something, you need to have a replacement theory. It's like, okay, we're going to redo society. So what are we going to do in its place and how is it going to work? And they don't have that. They're ridiculous. In fact, the city of Portland, if you remember, they gave the Antifa group, and I believe Portland's like has the biggest Antifa group or one of the biggest. They literally gave them a section of the city where they can try like an experimental slab city. No cops here. We'll take care of ourselves. Yada yada. And like everyone expected, it fell apart within 2 weeks. So they didn't have a plan, And then they have all of this stuff about no walls, no borders, no peace, but they had to wall off their section from the city to make sure that no evil cops can come in and help them because they don't believe in cops. But in order to make sure no one would come in and disrupt their commune, they had to arm themselves and put soy boy security guards on each of the walls to wall off the city. And then what happened was, I think you're seeing how this is all falling apart, folks. Then what happened was that they couldn't stop the criminals anyway. There were already criminals living in that part of the city, and they were letting their people within their group were thugs because the BLM has a lot of thug behavior going on. So there were people getting hurt and sexually assaulted within the commune. Then what happened was that they needed to hire a tough guy called, was it Raz? Raz from Chaz. Does everyone remember this? So they have to use money to hire private security, some tough guy who will break up fights with his goons. So basically a mafia. And then they realized that because they don't have a division of labor, they didn't have any way to grow food or a surplus. So they had to start sending people out into the other part of the city to buy food and come back in. And what else happened? Then people didn't know how to shoot guns because they had to buy guns. They weren't trained. So some people accidentally shot themselves. And one of the people who got shot was some, millennial Gen Z white girl, stupid college white girl, number 6,520, whatever. And she got shot in the hand, and they had to call the ambulance to get her out of there. But then they were like, well, wait, ambulances are capitalists. So they tried to get the ambulance to leave. So eventually I think they put her on a stretcher and walked her outside to the perimeter of the place. And eventually they ran out of food and they had to shut it down. Can you see the insanity that these leftist intellectuals are propagating and how they become idiots, like these brilliant, brilliant idiots? What is going on? How is this possible? They're supposed to be book learned. I mean, not only are they stupid, they're hypocrites. Literally everything I just said in that story goes against the Marxist vision of it all working out. But of course, communism and socialism never works out, and people still want to believe it does. Welcome, Tina. Thank you for joining us. So I think this is where we have to change our perspective. And there was one video, which I also linked, Thomas shared in our Telegram group, which was a black mother disassembling the gun control solution to the crime in cities and the shootings. And I don't know how educated she is, but this is a simple black mother who lost her son to a thug who shot him point blank, an evil, evil person. I mean, that's, you shoot a child point blank in the, I can't, how do you comprehend that? That's pretty bad. These places have gotten really bad. I mean, that isn't even like Al Capone stuff. That isn't even like shooting me in the back of the head because I owe money or whatever, which even the mafia wouldn't kill willy-nilly. I mean, there's like an ex-mafia guy on YouTube, and even he said, like, that guy who's in the Goodfellas, who was playing, it wasn't De Niro, it was, let me just see here. Not DeVito. One second. Okay, Joe Pesci, right? Joe Pesci plays this really unhinged maniac who murders people when he's drunk or he's just in a bad mood. That would be very rare, even in the mafia. Okay, so the mafia wouldn't do something like this. This is just raw, unadulterated evil, just running amok in the cities. And she was very clear. She said something very simple, that everyone had to shut up when they heard, and everyone was quiet. You could hear a pin drop. The, all of the cities with gun control in the United States have the most crime and shootings. So why is gun control going to solve anything? There's already gun control. So see that common sense thing that just pierces right through all of the BS? And on top of that, areas with the Second Amendment have less crime than the gun control areas. So not only is it a lie that gun control will solve it, but in fact, it does the opposite. And why is this? Well, if you're not stuck on the talking box and you haven't let your brain out on the sidewalk to fry like eggs, don't be like these, these aging terribly baby boomers. It's so sad. They used to tell us, "Don't watch TV; it's bad for your brain." And here we go. Like, thou art a hypocrite. That's all I can say. Don't be like that, okay? If you learn how to use your mind, uh, and you learn how to look for good information, you don't follow a narrative. Use the internet and look up statistics on how many times a gun owner's life was saved by the Second Amendment in robberies, okay? Yes, mass shootings are terrible. And by the way, many mass shootings were stopped by gun owners. They don't tell you that. But most people, when it comes to gun crime, are killed by small time crime. A thug tries to mug someone, shoots them into panic, or a home robbery. And sometimes, a lot of the time, they don't even use guns. They just beat you to death, or they use a baseball bat or a knife or something. They'll just stab you 50 times. Okay, so look at the statistics of how many people's lives are saved by owning a gun. And it's these real problems, that actually affect common lower class, blue collar to middle class Americans, you and me, not the little token, "Oh, this happened over here," because it's flashy and the news wants to talk about it to distract us from other things. I mean, things that actually affect our daily lives. The Second Amendment is a brilliant concept, simply put. So, again, why are we listening to these clowns? Why do we need to reprogram ourselves? We need to stop thinking, "Wow, it's Professor." And this is something that, as an educator, I am in a very interesting tightrope. I believe in education, but sometimes I talk to the parents and they just have this consumer like look, like, "Oh, Mr. Professor," because my dad is a professor. My dad's a humble guy, but I just wish there was a way to tell them, "Look, don't listen to the fact that we have college education and degrees. Listen to the truth. Don't look at the person, look for the truth." This is why Dr. Jordan Peterson has more views than any leftist peer I've seen. He blows them away. And if you can get on Joe Rogan's podcast, and Joe Rogan has a lot of views. He's not even an intellectual. He's decent, but he has some wacky ideas too. But he at least lets people speak. He hears people out, which is great. I can't find anyone that's on Dr. Jordan Peterson's level in terms of popularity. People are resonating with what he's saying. And on top of that, he's looked up to not just in the realm of his expertise, and he looks at it from a biological, evolutionary psychology, mass psychology perspective. But they look up to him for politics and even for spirituality because he does his job. Okay? What is the job of an academic expert? Type in the chat if you think what it is. Okay? And I'll share my opinion. But he does his job, and he reminds us in his lectures, you listen to him, and I know some people listening aren't the biggest fans of him. They think he's a little bit overrated. Some people that listen to my podcast, that's fine. I don't think he's overrated, but there's others that I think Jordan Peterson is like a gateway drug into the transcendental and into further realms of the objective truth, into a humble way of looking at the truth. But what he does is he takes his experience in psychology and how organisms work. He reminds us of the natural law, and he says, look, for thousands of years, we have observed that there is a logic, an order to organisms. There is a proper order to organisms that makes them happy and prosperous or kills them, makes them go extinct. And there clearly is a created order and function to biological and psychological processes that we can use to determine what is healthy and what makes people sick. And isn't it just sad? There's all of these, I think we need to open up like a new level of asylum or rehab center. If we may have to, or something. We have these people that are undiagnosed, mentally ill, or deluded, or evil, or spiritually sick people in this leftist cult thing, who are leading people astray and are being taken seriously by the center left. I think the center left is being lost. I think we're winning. We're taking away the center left and the independents. But there's still some people that, like, it's sad. Like, some of the center left is being radicalized and turning sick. We have some moms here in the chat, and they're seeing it, particularly among their daughters, okay? And they're seeing like something's going on, and my daughter, she's losing all her common sense. She's losing her sanity, and it's not good, right? Something's going on there, and they're believing that like actually we can create our own reality, and we can do this. And yet they love their little bunnies and their kittens. Now, the little bunny and kitten that you love so much understands that you can understand, right? They don't say, oh, my cat's transgender, as far as I know. They don't say my bunny's transgender. They don't say the tree's transgender. Why? So why can the animals get it right and the plants get it right, but we're better than that? Or maybe it doesn't really apply to us. And perhaps maybe we can identify, maybe this is what you can ask them. I know that what's his name? Dave Chappelle did a really good one where he said, well, what if I identify as a Chinese man in a black man's body? What would you say then? But what if, here's a tougher one. What if you identified as someone who can fly without wings? Are we going to go there? Well, maybe we will, because apparently in New York City, there are now signs saying, do not shame people who take drugs. That is their choice. That is their path. That is their truth. That is their happiness. So I used to say, well, you wouldn't tell a heroin user not to use heroin. Well, apparently New York City is rolling that out. So maybe we'll get to the point where people will actually believe that they can fly. And other wonderful ideas. And, maybe you can do some parachuting without the parachute. I don't know. But that's what he's reminding us. And in reminding us of that, he reminds us of the job of a scientist or philosopher. Okay? What is their job? Everything has a function. So what is the job? And this is a whole nother diatribe I'll go into one day, right? The job of a church. And I have some issues with what's going on in the Catholic Church, of course, and many other denominations. The job of a church is to bring people towards a salvation through a relationship with God and the truth of the cross, death, and resurrection of Jesus Christ. Okay, and through prayer to foster that, not to hear the sermons or the Rise food pantry that's downstairs in the place we rent from, whatever. Okay, that is the job of the church. Pope Francis and other cardinals or whatever liberation theologist whack job is listening. I hope they're listening. Okay, the job of the church is to bring people to God. Do we agree? Does that make sense? Okay, the job of a fire station is to put out fires. The job of a hospital is to make people healthy and to keep them healthy, not to push antidepressants that make you eventually go psychotic and other bad medications that make you hooked and, not tell people to get their lives in order. Another problem. The job of a police station is to stop crime. The job of a higher education professional is to seek the truth, okay? Not to make up a truth, not to make up a theory and then say it's the truth, but instead to seek the truth. That is your job. That is what the parents who pay tuition should expect from you. And at this point, I know maybe, most of these people don't believe in God. At this point, I think the ignorance may be completely out of time, okay? There may be millstones around these people's necks. Not all of them. I'm not judging. I'm just saying at this point, you are probably intentionally sick or wicked, or you just should never have been given tenure. You have made yourself your own little god in your own little safe space. It's pathetic and it's hurting people. It's making cults. That's what this is. It's a cult. Unofficial cults everywhere. And how do you seek truth? You listen and you observe and you do particular methods that help to filter out bias as best as possible and to get as many angles towards the truth as you can. The truth is not you. You are not the truth. The truth is something that humanity tries to find for the betterment of others and just for the sake of the fact that it's kind of cool to learn about the truth. It's beautiful to learn about God's creation. That's what the truth is. So that is why Dr. Peterson is resonating with people. There's two reasons why the resonating is happening. The first reason is natural law. Now, this is something that I think needs to be studied more. I'd love to interview Dr. Peterson. I don't know where in the brain is it programmed for the survival instinct, okay? There's a survival instinct clearly in animals, and I think we have it. And it's really showing that people in cults and they're in La La Land and leftists, they're losing their survival instinct, okay? They're losing their sense of self-preservation and self-honesty. And those people, you can see it in their faces. They look like cattle. They look like, like sheep. They literally look like it's like there's something in their face that's like, I'm just ready to be killed. I'm just ready to, just be suckered into a scam. And I'm going to, eventually just be, carted off into the gulag. It's really creepy. It's like a really broken person. And you see that, right, in like a domesticated animal. At least they have a function, but it's kind of like that. And I don't want to say like I'm a Darwinist. That's kind of cruel. I don't want people to die. I don't want these people to lose their souls. I'm just saying that's what it looks like. Okay, so the first reason why it resonates is because the truth resonates with that part of our brain that says, that food was lying out on the counter for 2 nights and it smells. I shouldn't eat it. That's going to kill me. Another one. Well, that particular creepy neighborhood looks really shady. I'm pretty sure I shouldn't walk down the sidewalk unless I'm armed and with 2 other armed buddies. And even then, why should I go there? How about this? That ideology has killed 200 plus million people. I'm pretty sure there must be something fatally wrong with it, and so on and so forth. He also points on a deeper level towards the fact that this exists on a very personal, psychological level for daily practical living. So, we go about the day and we make judgment calls. Oh, don't judge. Well, too bad, sucker. You're judging. You're judging in saying don't judge. Okay? You can't run away from judgment. You can't run away from a hierarchy of truth. So, uh, we go around in life, we make judgment calls, we make decisions. We have to make decisions to function in life. So when we hear things like, well, actually, um, you know, there's got to be gun control, uh, and even though all the gun controlled areas, there's still criminals with guns, and so they can't be buying it. And they also have the highest rate of crime. And it's just going to work, okay? And actually, what you need to do is you need to not have a gun in the south side of Chicago, where the police get to you in about 8 to 9 average hours on a good day, and you can check that out. It actually takes about 8 hours because that's how bad it is. And you should just sit there and trust in the police, and you're probably really badly done door lock that you haven't gotten fixed in a while, and you'll be just fine. Especially if you're a single mother with like 2 5-year-olds, I'm sure you'll be able to protect yourself from any home invaders and junkies and things. I'm sure you'll be fine. That part of ourselves is going to say, wait a minute, okay? So that's the first level, and people are sick of it. People are sick of La La Land. They're starting to look at society and the culture, and they're like, what the hell are these people doing? We have real problems, and you're not really addressing anything that affects me in my own life. This doesn't affect me. This, constantly cuddling the gay community does not feed my family. It does not help the gas prices. It doesn't do any of that. It doesn't help me with anything. It's just an irrelevant virtue signal. A Marxist utopia uh, is not conducive to what I want out of life. And why would I do that? What's the point? Like, why would I downsize myself? The only reason why you can justify someone downsizing their own capital and property is if they're like a hardcore Franciscan monk or an anchorite or something. And I get, if you want to do that, why don't you commies join some monasteries and actually do something with all that non-material stuff? I know you won't, because you guys are hypocrites. You still type at Starbucks cafes with your Apple laptops, but what is this? And there's many other issues going on, because that is the biological, God-given defense mechanism that we believe the animals should have, but we shouldn't have. How strange is that? There's such a splitting of the mind. Okay, there's confusion. It's like there's a diabolical confusion in the leftist mind. They are so ADHD and so unable to like remember what they said 2 weeks ago, and they can't be consistent in their argument, and their own life is falling apart, and they say, well, no, I'm good. This is the way it is. Okay? So that's the level we're talking about. But there's a deeper level. Oh, we had a little bit of an interruption. There's a deeper level that can be seen in the video I linked of Dr. Steve Turley and his commentary on Dr. Jordan Peterson. Dr. Jordan Peterson was discussing with Joe Rogan that the Bible has the structure of the actual element of truth seeking. And that's very important. I didn't think of it like that. I mean, I guess I've experienced that when I meditate on it, but that's an excellent point, okay? The Bible doesn't just teach moral truths, but it lays out a spiritual and historical groundwork for how the truth prevails. In the Bible, you see, big empires fall because they rejected truth. Even the ones that win, right? Even the ones that win, they subjugate the Jews, they take over everything, like the Babylonians or the Assyrians or the Romans or, the Nazis, or just fill in the blank, just keep going. Even if there is a complete checkmate on every system imaginable, a society that rejects truth falls and doesn't get back up. Life Alert can't save them. Because how can your life work? How can anything work if you don't believe in truth? You just go hog wild with your selfism and your emotions and your own little weird fantasies, and things fall apart. And so it breaks down the consequences of virtue and vice and the lack of God in society. It isn't just particular ontological, mystical things, it's also a blueprint. But then Dr. Turley said this, okay? And this goes back to Socrates again. If you have a society where you have, like goofball Antifa professors, and then you have real I don't want to say that this guy's a real professor. Who said that? I'm trying to be nice here. If you have a serious, humble professor like Dr. Peterson, they're both professors. They have two different ways of looking at systems. One is chaos. One is order. One, you see the consequence. The other, you see Dr. Peterson is leading us towards order and respect. But unfortunately, if you go on the pure secular rationalistic bird-brained worship the professor mindset, they're equal, right? They're both professors. And you have babbling going on. That's what we call babble. You have people just saying, I have the truth. No, I have the truth. No, I have the truth. And so there's this complete tug of war, and you either do two things. One, you believe in David Hume, and who says people determine truth, and you watch how that plays out, or you let back in the idea of the sacred. Okay, the sacred. And even if you don't believe in God, the idea of a sacred eternal truth has been a bulwark. It stopped this kind of stuff from happening, because the sacred is this, it embodies this idea that we cannot control truth. We have to get right with the truth. The truth doesn't get right with us, because if it gets right with us and everyone has a different truth, then it can't be truth. You just screwed up the whole terminology, right? You just made up. And that's another problem. There's a war on words. There's all of these bad, I just throw around these words and gender and truth and, love is like, no, we can't have that anymore. Okay. And if you do that, we're not taking you seriously. You are on the way to the asylum. That's where you're going. You're not a legitimate professor or educator, you are on the way to the asylum because you have denied your natural law defense mechanism God gave you to function in reality and to prosper and to have children and a happy life in reality. You've denied, so you're already crazy as far as I'm concerned. It's just we have crazy psychiatrists who are also woke that are controlling what is. But we'll get them out one day, and it'll be glorious when it happens. Okay, so that is why the sacred is important. That is why, and this is where I come down to this picture here, okay? That is why we need to look at the drama of Pontius Pilate and Jesus. Behold the man, right? We have the famous passage, I am the way, the truth, and the life, and it's sequeled by Pontius Pilate and his discussion with Jesus, where Pontius Pilate famously says, what is the truth? And then you have behold the man, ecce homo. Very important. We can look at it from an emotional, devotional perspective, right, guys? Like, we've all watched The Passion of the Christ, probably cried in it. We felt very bad for Jesus. We felt bad for our sins. We felt bad. But there's a much deeper way to look at this, okay? You got to go. I know a lot of you are contemplatives here. You got to go deeper than your emotion. I'm not saying the emotion isn't bad, emotional side of things, but there's something deeper going on with sin, okay? It all revolves around truth. I believe the end times revolves around truth. So what do you see in this picture? Okay. You see Pontius Pilate. What is the archetype of Pontius Pilate all about? Pontius Pilate is what? He's the state. He is the state. He is the secular state. This is Jesus. Jesus is the truth. He is being persecuted. He is being crucified. Now, the context, who betrayed the truth to the state? The people betrayed the truth. And the religious figures who went along with the people, they betrayed the truth. And if you remember, Pontius Pilate didn't have like this extremist standpoint. Yeah, I get this guy's a menace to society, and you throw him out. No, he didn't, right? He went along with the people because he didn't want to rock the boat. He wanted, Rome was, I mean, I know it became an empire, but it was a republic. It was pretty much ancient America, and they still had a lot of those ideals in the empire. This idea that we're citizens, we got to keep the people happy. We got to keep the peace no matter what. Can't have this Jesus guy talk about this stuff, even though he literally is just a carpenter. This guy literally hasn't killed a fly as far as we know. And, he's just got a bunch of goofy Jewish ladies following him who want to serve the poor and all that BS. It's so, isn't it so sad? Like, the story of Jesus, right? So they betray Jesus. Why? Why did they betray Jesus? Now, Jesus' message was about how you need a relationship with God. You need to repent of your sins. You need to believe in the objective truth and worship in spirit and truth. And what the Jewish context of the times was, a lot of them were practicing idolatry, yes, but a lot of them were into money, 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 money. The Pharisees were into money. Judas was into money. Money is, and Jesus is telling us all of this stuff about why money isn't everything. And also, he told us that he's fighting with the religious authorities who just want us to be good little Jews in pews, and they want us to just, bug off. And as long as we're paying our shekels to them and being good Jews, we can be as dirty as we want, right? Because we got to keep the peace. And we have to respect the American government and the professors. We have to respect the Romans and the Greeks, right? They're in charge, don't want to rock the boat. And of course, Jesus wasn't a revolutionary. They wanted Barabbas, a revolutionary, right? But, so you'll have these people on the other end, the Barabbas types who say, yeah, Jesus was revolutionary. He hated the state. No, Jesus didn't hate the state. He didn't, all distraction. What did Jesus say? Jesus says, I am the way, the truth, the life. And you got to get right with the truth. If you want your life to not fall apart, if you don't want to go to hell, which is the dimension of chaos, which comes when you dissociate from the truth. There's that famous line in the movie Gladiator. What we do in this life echoes for eternity, right? So if you're a chaotic, immoral person, I don't know, man. Like, if you don't accept Jesus, you don't get God's mercy. You might not end up in a very good place, and you probably will have to spend some time in purgatory, getting yourself right, getting yourself healed, and getting corrected. So, right, but that's the idea. This spirituality is not based on what you want to be, Mr. New Age. You are not God. God is God. God is the truth. He's not just love, he's the truth. So this is the drama of Pontius Pilate and Jesus. This is very important. Can you see the truth, right? It's more than just, and you got to be careful with the fake mercy liberation theology. Well, we're all made in the image of God, right? Nancy Pelosi said that. They're not monsters. They're made in the image, we're all children made in the image of God. That doesn't mean that a person is holy. That just means we have the potential to be like God. We have the potential, doesn't mean everyone's like God, right? How do you see the truth? And in that truth, do you see God? Now, there's another thing that Dr. Peterson and other people, like Dr. Paul Vitz and Jonathan Bigot, and people on this channel who pray and the Holy Spirit touches them and they see things differently. The other truth is something going on in psychology. Psychology, especially the dumbed down pop psychology, but this psychology cannot explain why there are levels of happiness and misery that don't fall under like a neurosis. Like you're seeing things, or you have this awful insecurity because someone beat you up, traumatized you, bullied you, assaulted you in some way, and whatever. All of that is possible. But there's something going on where people who live immoral lives aren't happy, and they're not crazy. They're just very unhappy and deranged, maybe, God complex, maybe, but they're not crazy. They go to work, they can run businesses. Was Adolf Hitler crazy? Well, a little bit. Yeah, he was a little crazy, but not that crazy. He wasn't dysfunctional. He was evil. Stalin, okay, I mean, Stalin was not crazy. He was evil. He fell for an evil agenda. Mao Zedong, my God, you know, this guy was just a total. He killed more than the other two guys I just mentioned. What is that? Psychology can't get to the bottom of it. Okay. And then we have the issue going on with, again, the downfall of leftist experts. Why are these people so unhappy? They're chasing their tail. They can't seem to ever have any joy. They have no humor at all. They take themselves totally seriously. And yet they're stupid, and they're so serious about how serious they are, and yet they can't think themselves out of a wet paper bag, and they're messed up. Well, why is that? There's a deeper truth that Dr. Peterson is pointing at. And the truth is that the metaphysical, the spiritual is reality. This is something we have to just get out of our heads. Any atheist or secular lie, it's already on its way out. There are people rethinking this. But let's just smash the hammer down completely in our system and say, atheist, you're wrong. You're wrong. Just say it. Say it in the mirror 50 times. There is a God, you're wrong. Now, I believe in God, but even in my subconscious, there's this thing where I have to be a little bit, well, there's people who don't believe. No, I don't care. There is a God. Why is there a God? Because there is a clear created order to not just the created universe, but to how we operate. And clearly, virtue and vice is part of the equation. Clearly, from the downfall of our culture, we see that values, the living out of virtue, and especially the relationship with God to help us live that out is a necessity. End of. Because there's no other answers. And everyone's resonating with what Dr. Peterson is saying. Yeah, there'll always be some atheists. There's always going to be doubters. Ignore them. Ignore these idiots. Okay? And I think that's what I want to close with. This is crucial and could be an exodus for us. We could get through the Red Sea if we stop this. Like, if maybe we need to just ask the Lord to purify ourselves of this. But we need to believe in the power of truth that anyone with the truth, I don't care if they're a window washer, if they have the truth and 50 PhD professor doesn't have the truth in a particular debate, the window washer wins. And the window washer should get all of the likes and the other guy should get all the dislikes. And he should be he should be laughed out the building or booed out of the stage. The window washer should be elected president and the other guy should not. Okay? Enough of the nepotism, enough of the old guard, enough of this weird thing with the old people, especially leftist old people. Can you please get off the stage? Like Nancy Pelosi, can you please get off? You have been in office for so long. You have dementia patients running the country. All right, what is this thing with oh wow, like they're old, they're so smart. No, they're not. And I'm telling you, there's gonna be a lot of young people continuously putting to shame these old farts who are like they're gone up here, but they're running on their prestige. It's ridiculous. Not every person who's as old as Moses is Moses. Can we get over this? It has nothing to do. If you think age has to do with wisdom, you're in trouble. That's another part of the blue pills, another part of the matrix, like lies that has been installed in our head or assumptions on how things work. Truth is beyond all of these little hierarchies and little cute little human, mortal play in the playpen. This is all baby stuff. This is childish behavior of people that want power. Okay? And again, this is where the sacred comes in. That's maybe another thing we could look at. Another way we can look at the Bible. Jesus was like in his 30s and 30 to 33 and he's God one, but think about it. His ministry involved him in during his time as a young man, and he embarrassed these old Pharisees, right? Another way to look at it. But that's my point. Seems like we don't have that many comments, but I'm glad you like it, Elizabeth and St. John. Hello, hi-oh. I don't know if you're advertising for that or just saying that that's part of the problem. So I won't delete your comment, but I'm a little bit confused on that one. I guess I'll end with this, which is my final point. Okay, fighting this battle and not smashing an idol, right? And there's many idols to be smashed. I have playlists of shows. You can check them out. There's Are You Spiritual? You can check out that playlist. There's Contemplative Visions. But I'm noticing that there is a liberation spiritually that happens when you smash an idol. It's like a weight is lifted. And I think One of the big problems going on psychologically and spiritually is we have these awful ideas installed in us, even when we were kids, since childhood, through the educational system, through the culture, through even bad ideas from our parents. We love our parents, but they're not perfect and they can fall for it too, et cetera, bad religious leaders, what have you. Okay. The final problem is fill in the blank with these like people out there that are supposed to be godlike and celebrities and whatever. This stuff takes away from the dignity of who you are. Think about it. Every time you give power to these people or something like this, some collectivist thing, whatever it is, you're telling yourself subconsciously that you don't have any power. You're telling yourself that you're not a child of God, that you can't make a change. And that's a big problem. That is a huge problem. That's my final admonition to you. Believe that you could beat up, intellectually speaking, um, the Antifa professor guy, or Dr. Fauci, or whatever. Believe that you could go up to that person and make them want to run out the building screaming, and they usually do want to do that. They're trying to hide in their scream when they have they can't take the opposition, right? I mean, it's obvious. That's why they have to censor everyone. They can't handle it, right? But believe it. Believe that you're the big bad gorilla in the room. You're the wolf in the room. They're not. And physically speaking, I'm like, I don't know, like something going on. Like if I was an old guy and getting everyone mad that has a gun, I would be kind of afraid. Like, what if like I get people mad enough and they just decide to kill me? Like I'm like not a spring chicken, and I may have bodyguards, but that's like with 6 people, right? Like, what's this thing of like believing that you're? I don't know. Maybe they're just deluded in that. Maybe they actually think I can actually take on the entire population of the world. I don't know, but believe that you can do it. And believe in the power of truth because, especially if you're a Christian, right? Believe in the crucifixion, the life, death, and resurrection of Jesus in the lens of the triumph of truth. There's many different ways you can apply the life, death, and resurrection. But I mean is like, look at it also from the truth being killed and censored and persecuted and canceled, and it still wins. And that's actually what happened. That is a part of Jesus' life. He still ended up with this huge church with millions of followers and saints and this Western civilization and cathedrals. He still won. This is a person who was killed as horribly as possible, and he's God, of course. But my point is, he still triumphed, and he will triumph again, even more so in the end times. Okay, but there's like lesser known people. There's lesser known people. Study history. Study the humble beginnings of the abolitionist movement. Study, even artists and musicians. Mozart, right? Wasn't Mozart not taking that seriously, or he was too out there? People were kind of like, I don't know about this guy. Study, there's all. Go back. Sometimes I want to like invite some of these adults to my history class, like in middle school, like what about Galileo Galilei? Okay, what about just so many Greek philosophers that had to deal with persecution? What about people having issues with Saint Thomas Aquinas? He did triumph, but he had to deal with some things. What about? I mean, the list goes on, and they all start being the soldier, the man in the crowd, right? And they say the truth. They don't care. They believe in the power of the truth. They believe in the power of the Lord. They fight Goliath. They win. And doesn't that make them more powerful, right? I guess that's what I should say at the end. Which is more powerful? Someone who has all of the media and 5 million different buddies and everyone on their side and all the money, who still barely wins against one guy with a microphone or one person of God, or maybe still wins, or maybe still loses to them, and no one takes them seriously. Which is more powerful? The person that started with just 5 people listening to them, and eventually their truth was resurrected through divine providence to affect millions of people, right? Like the civil rights movement, for example. All the money was on all the money and power was on the Democrat side in the southern states. The Dixiecrats had a new agenda, right? That shouldn't have happened. Martin Luther King Jr. wasn't supposed to triumph. There were several presidents who had KKK. Some still do have KKK connections, like the one in office, and yet he triumphed. They killed him, still triumphed. Why? Why are they losing power again? They have literally even more money. Why are they losing the hearts and minds of the black folks of America? Why? See, we got something wrong here, folks. We're looking at it wrong. It's not, truth is more powerful than a mob, not a mob over truth. So that's why, and also, you'll be much happier thinking like that. You'll feel much more liberated. You won't feel like some insecure, I feel bad for them, but these insecure kids and millennials and Gen Z who actually believe the group is, because it's all a big illusion, right? You're just a little tweet retweeting some person who's also just saying what everyone else is saying. And then once a trend changes, everyone in that previous trend will be irrelevant. They'll be thrown to the garbage can. So these big celebrities with millions of tweets, how powerful really are they, right? If they can be so easily discarded. How many trends have we been through? Ukraine and vaccine and versus mask and what else? A gun control and abortion. We've been through 5 different trends, and the moment that trend is over, they feel like they're thrown away. That's what happened with the feminist movement. They're completely out of whack. They're barely in power because the transgender thing's all the rage. So the fate of people that believe in that, sadly, they just get completely disappointed. They don't win. They don't have any victory. It's just a big illusion. So anyway, that's it. I went over a little bit of time. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I'm heading out to do some more work, and God bless. Provide feedback, and I will probably be back next Saturday because I'm on summer break. So good to be back. Take care, everyone.